Hello there, I hope you're keeping well. In today's video, we're going to be looking at remote learning. Hopefully by the end of the video, you'll be able to see the similarities between teaching in the classroom and remote teaching. We'll also look at how you can translate the great practice that you have in the classroom to great practice online. This video, along with the other videos showing how we're going to use Office 365, will hopefully show you how you can support pupils to work collaboratively online as well as working independently. And with all the videos combined, we're hoping that you will be able to boost the confidence of people, which will then save time later if or when we have to teach children who are isolating. Now, I'm sure as we'll all agree, we have a really high expectation for the children at school and we want them to have the best possible education. Now that is whether they're learning at school or whether they learn at home, we always want the best for the children. Now, if we put the legal requirements to one side, I don't think that would make any difference to the way we deliver what we do at school. We have such high expectations of what we want for the children, and that was quite clear to be seen in what you offered the children right from the first lockdown. The way that everyone went above and beyond what was expected to make sure that no child was left behind was absolutely fantastic. And I can just only express how pleased both myself and the rest of the senior team were with everyone who was so supportive during that. And for that, once again, thank you. Now, when we were doing that, we were using Shobi and Socrative, and they are great platforms, but we are going to be moving away from that as we move into January 2021. Now, that isn't a criticism of the platforms, it's just the fact that we are going to be moving on Office 365. That's going to offer us some things that Socrative and Shobi can't offer us. There's also the fact that the DFE, the Department for Education, have a list of approved learning platforms online, and Shobi doesn't come under that list, whereas Office 365 does. Office 365 is also the platform that Newcastle Local Authority have been with for at least the last 5 years, and it's been something that they've been pushing. So again, we are going to go in line with the rest of the local authority on that decision. Now, when we look at the things that have been set out by the Department for Education, or the DFE, we can see that they expect work to be set each day, which is something that we've been doing clearly from the beginning. They also want us to teach and have to teach a planned and well-structured curriculum. And I think the main difference there is the fact that they're now saying teach, because some schools, like we did for the first couple of weeks, sent home packs of work, and they continue to do that rather than doing online teaching. And I think it's moving away from the expectation of just giving some work, but actually the fact that the children are being taught as well. They also said that we need to provide frequent, clear explanations of new content. Now, we have been using things like the White Rose videos, which are excellent, and things like the Oak National College, and they are really good, but it's sometimes it's looking at whether or not we can adjust the pace and the difficulty for our children, and for that we might have to start using some more of our own teaching content. Now, when we look at the use of assessment for learning, as we move in Office 365, you'll be able to see in the other videos and in the training at school that Office 365 will offer us the chance to use assessment for learning a bit clearer than Shobi has so far been able to offer us. It also says that we should deliver an equivalent length to teaching our children get at school, and we'll see in the next slide how we plan to do that and how we've managed to do that in the previous lockdown and previous isolations. So as you know, we made it really clear in the first lockdown that every child had an English task per day, which had some teaching content that went alongside it. They had one maths task a day, and then what we did is we created a foundation pack so that they did some foundation work each day. As we move forward, we'll continue with that model. However, what will happen is they'll get the English teaching with a task a day, maths teaching with a task a day, and then what we'll do is we'll focus on one foundation subject each day, which has clear teaching and clear learning that goes along with it. So say it's the Monday, you might focus on history, and then you'd have some really clear history delivery. followed by a history task. Then on the Tuesday, you might move on to art. And again, you'll have some really clear teaching, which will then be followed up with a task for the children to do at home. Now, moving on, we did look at the research from the EEF, the Education Endowment Fund, when we first went to remote learning, and it's something we're going to revisit briefly here just to see how we've applied that in Moving Office 365. So, as we saw the last time, lessons don't need to be live, okay? And what makes our lessons effective is the things that we do at school. So anything that works at school is going to work online as well. Now, they don't need to be live. If we record something and we put it online and they watch it at a later date, that's not going to impact on the learning, right? So but what it could do is it could remove a barrier, because if you've got two children at home who are both isolating and you've only got one device, that can cause a barrier to learning. So having a pre-recorded lesson will give them all the benefits of the teaching, but takes away a barrier of them not necessarily being able to access two or more devices at the same time. The EEF also talked about the benefits of peer interaction. Now, we see that at school all of the time. So when I go around the classes, I can see how you use peer mark, and I can see how you have peer feedback. And how you get children in talk partners and buddying up all the time. That's something that we've not been able to do in the Showbie platform. But as we move in Office 365, you'll see in the OneNote tutorials, which will come out, that we can get the children working in a collaborative space, and that's something that will really benefit the children if they are to work from home again in the near future. It'll also help with things like homework move in the future as well, if we want children to work collaboratively at home. When we're looking at working at home, we want to promote independence. So when we're creating the tasks for the kids, we want to look at the fact that, are we giving them a chance to manage their time well? Are we chunking the work? So rather than having a front end video that might be 20 minutes long, are we giving them short, snappy videos where they can then do some work, then another video that follows up and do some work? Now, that's what we do at school all the time. Every time I go into lessons, I can see you doing mini plenaries, breaking down the lessons, chunking it, giving the children the best learning they possibly can and the best chance to apply the work and memory. And that's exactly what we need to be doing online as well. Just stagger the lessons, stagger the tasks, so that actually we're not overloading that work and memory. As well as that, we need to provide children with the tools to self-assess as we're moving on. So I can see that in the lessons, I see you giving children things like writing frames, success criteria. These are all things that we'd use online as well, just to make sure that the children are able to access those tools to make sure they make the most progress possible. Just like in the classroom, variety works. Different approaches suit different people at different times. So if I'm doing something like shape, I would use a different approach to if I was doing something like long division, or if I was doing a writing task, I approach that differently. If I was doing a writing task, I know someone else might approach it differently to me as well. Now, that all depends on things like what are you teaching, who is your group, and actually what works for you, because if it works for you, it's going to help the children as well. And just like we do that at school, the same thing applies online as well. We're not going to say you've got to teach in a certain way. You know what's the best for your learners, and that's why our children do so well at school. And that's what we want you to do if they're working from home. You know what's best for them, and you continue to deliver your lessons in a way that meets your style of teaching and meets the children's style of learning, because that's going to be what's best for them and best for you. Now, as much as we've said that, there are going to be some fundamentals moving forward. And the fundamentals are what works in the class works online, as I've said before. Your lessons don't need to be perfect. I've already made some mistakes in this presentation. I'm not going to record it again. It's what you're going to get from this presentation. You're going to get whether I make a slight mistake, or if I stumble over some words, or if I get it pitch perfect. It's not going to make the difference. what's going to really make the difference with your lessons is the way that you engage with the children, and that's what's really important to them. And what makes your lessons effective in the classroom is exactly what's going to make them effective at home as well. Now, sometimes people find it easy to look and think, well, actually, what do I like to put in my lessons at home, and just jot them down and do exactly that when you're doing some content for online learning as well. As I've alluded to before, now what's important to the kids is that engagement with you, and we saw that all the way through lockdown. We saw with the way you created fantastic videos for the kids when you were reading stories, or when you were showing them, like the early years when they were showing them sounds, or when we're going all the way up to Key Stage 2 when we had the videos to show them on the content. The kids really engage with that because they were engaging with you, because that's exactly what they want. And if we can make that connection with the kids, we know for a fact that they're going to do better, because that's what's really going to sort of spark their interest in the learning. Now, moving forward, something that we really think is important is that we continue to do reading at school. We make reading a big priority. We don't just get the kids to read, but we read to them, because it's important to model it. It's important that they see the fluidity of the reading and how to sort of read with expression. So as we move forward, if the children are isolating, whether the children are in the early years all the way through to year 6, I think it's really important for them to be able to hear the teacher to reading to them, because we don't want them to be away from school and missing that experience, because it's something that we can see year on year. The children do so well because it's something we model so well, and it's something that the children really benefit from, and that's not something we want them to lose just because they're spending a week or 2 weeks at home learning online instead. Now, as we had before, there is a timetable, and that's just to ensure we've got a uniformed approach so that each parent knows what to expect, whether the child's in early years or whether in year 6. Now, of course, there's going to be a vast difference on what they get. So if you've got an English task and they're in year 6, they might be doing some description, they might be doing some SPAG, looking at things like front adverbials, can't think on the spot. Whereas in early years, they might be more focusing on things like phonics, but again, they're getting that English task per day, they're getting that maths task per day, and then they're getting the foundation task, something that's outside of that area. And it's just having that clear expectation so that the parents know exactly what they're going to do with the child each day. They know they're going to have that English slot, they know they're going to have that math slot, they know they're going to have that foundation slot, so they can think about how much time they need to put aside to support the children, or just know how much time the children need to be online, basically. And I think the more we can have that clear routine, the easier it is for parents, the easier it is for children, and the easier it is for us, for staff as well, just to know what to do moving forward. When we move on Office 365, each child's going to get an email address just like us. So just like we have first name, last name at St. Paul's, that's the same will happen with the learners at school. Now this is brilliant because we can share communications with them, tell them about the good work they've done or things that they can improve on. We can also do that in platforms such as OneNote as well. So there's lots of different ways we can do that. Just like we had Socrative before, we're now going to move on to forms, and that's just the equivalent. It's a good way of setting a quiz. It's good for things like hinge questions, and there's so many other benefits to using forms over Socrative. So we can embed videos, so we can show them a video and then they can answer questions linked to that video, or we can embed some pictures and they can answer questions linked to that picture as well. As well as that, we can use Office 365 to give the children rewards, which we can then replicate when we come back to school, which ties in with our behaviour policy, which is a really good way of making sure we've got that continuity both at home and at school. What I would say is when we're going to online learning, just like we do in classroom, keep the instructions short, keep them simple. When we're looking at texts, now, there is things on OneNote such as the immersive reader. So if we do have long texts, if they're doing something like reading for information, they can go on there and it can read it for them if they struggle with that. But if there's a chance to use concise text, do that because it just makes it more manageable. And try to keep all the links in one place as well, which Office 365 and something like OneNote will make that far easier, as it means that they're not clicking from one link, opening up a new tab, going back, open up a new tab, going back. back. As well as that, what I would say is just always test the resources before they're needing to be used, because if it works for you, it's online, it's going to work for the learners as well. Right, in terms of collaborative and independent work, as we know, the EF are really promoting that collaborative work in terms of a tool to use. What I would say is just transfer what we already do in the classroom and just do it online. What we're going to do is I'm going to put some videos online to show you how we can use the collaborative work, and we'll also do some training sessions within school as well. And if anything comes up and you think, oh, how could I do that further? I'm more than happy to answer those questions individually. In terms of practical tips, what I would say is the most time is really need to be spent on the setup. So when you come to delivering it, if you've got some notes at the side or some bullet points just to keep you going, that's going to be far easier. It's probably quite good to think of it along the lines of a science lesson. Before that science lesson happens, when you've got the experiment, you've already written what you need to have on that lesson. You've already broken down how much time you're going to give to each task. That's what I would do with the online learn. I'd have all of those resources just ready at the very beginning, so that you're ready to go, and then the filming will be made far, far easier. Now, I bullet point my ideas in assembly because it just keeps me on track. And I think if you do that online learning as well, if you just bullet point your ideas, it'll just keep you on track all the way through. And what I would say as well is just think about your classroom routines. What works in the classroom is going to work online. What I would do as well is always just have a clear expectation of how much input is manageable, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to set something that's way too high that you can't keep up on, because you don't want to burn out. As well as that, when you create the videos, just make sure you're really explicit. Think about the fact that children are going to look at this, and potentially some adults as well, and just think, what do I want them to know by the time they finish this to do the task? And if they haven't got it, if they watch it back, will they get it again the next time? Just make those instructions really explicit so they can carry out the work that you set. Again, just focus on the learning. So we've got a really clear intent document at the school. Just have that really in mind at the forefront the full time, just as you have at the forefront of every lesson at school. What is the intent for my class, and how am I going to deliver this lesson? That's exactly what you need to do when we're doing that online learning as well. Use your existing planning. So if, for instance, you find out on the Tuesday that your bubble or has to isolate, don't think, what on earth am I going to do on the Wednesday, Thursday and Friday? You've already got your plan there. That's exactly what you're going to do on the Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. There's nothing that you were going to do in the classroom that you can't necessarily do online. And what I would say is just use your existing resources as well. So if you had a text you were going to do with the kids in the classroom, you can put that onto OneNote for them to look at. Again, if you had a video you were going to show them, again, you can put that on OneNote and they'll be able to access it there, and they'll be able to do the work online. Now, as we move forward, Office 365 is something that's new. It is something that's going to be a bit at times. And what I would say is we just need to build the skills gradually. It's not something that's going to come overnight. And what I would say is this is just a journey that we're going to be on. And even though we might get, hopefully in the near future, with the vaccine being there, less and less bubbles have an isolate, it's still something that I think we'll be using as we move into the future. So if we look at next steps, what I would say is please do contact for any help. So if you're looking thinking, right, I was going to do this in art, I'm not sure how I'm going to fill the curriculum, or I was going to do this in English tomorrow, I can't see how I'm going to do that online, or maths, just please just ask. I'd far rather have that conversation and reduce any anxieties that you've got, rather than you just stressing and thinking, how on earth am I going to do that if I'm going online? As well as that, if you've got any technical issues, so if you're looking thinking, right, I've got the video, but how on earth do I put this online? It just doesn't make any sense. He went too fast going through it. Again, just ask. I'm happy to go through anything, and I'm sure we'll learn some things as we go along, just like we did with Showbie. As we got further and further down that line, people shot off massively ahead of where we were at the beginning. That's, I'm sure, what we'll see with Office 365 as well. Again, leaving the best to last is well-being. What I would say is the most important thing is the well-being of everyone who's involved. Now, it's really important that when we're in these situations, you are away from school, okay? You are away from from the network of people that are around you. Please, if you feel that you just need, that you're on a bit of a sort of a low because you're at home, don't hesitate to contact, have a chat, share your thoughts and feelings. We don't want people to feel like they're alone, because sometimes when you're at home, it is a horrible feeling. When we're at school, we can discuss those things. And what we want to happen is we want that to continue. Just because you're at home doesn't mean that we're not thinking about you, doesn't mean that you're not at the forefront of everything that we're thinking. We want you to know that if you need that contact, please contact. We're here to discuss those things. As well as that, children's well-being is just as important when they're at home as they are at school. So again, when we do things like those forms, have some well-being questions on there so they can just touch base with the kids, see how they're getting on, see how they're feeling, so that anything that's not going as well as they would like them to, we can nip that in the bud really quick and give the support that they need. What I would say, and it sounds quite quite a fast thing to say, is we do need to build our technology skills. So yes, as we move forward, we might not be having children working at home. However, what I would say is that remote learning like this has been something that's been on the forefront at Newcastle's local authority for at least the last 5 years. And I think the lockdown has pushed it really far forward now. And I think that as we move into the future, we'll be continuing to use that online work for things like homework. So rather than just send a worksheet home or just sending the homework book home, we can see that there's been massive benefits to doing the online learning. And I think that as we move forward, that'll be something that we'll continue to do. So I think building the technology skills now is only going to make us stronger and make the children's learning stronger as we move into the future. What I would say that is, don't take it as a negative. It's not about developing new skills. It's about transferring the skills that you've got and moving them across into the online learning as well. And I think all it is it's about us. We know what makes learning fantastic for our kids, and we can see that. We can see that the children are happy, they learn, they progress. And what we need to do is just make sure that we're prepared to make sure that we can do that online as well, which I know from Showbie and from the lockdowns, we were miles ahead of what was expected. And we saw that with the fantastic offer that the kids got. And like I've said in the previous slide, I think that it is a style of teaching that we'll use, if not for anything else, then for homework and for revision moving forwards as well. All right, thank you very much. And I hope you look at the other videos on how to use things like forms, OneNote, and the recording of lessons as well. Take care, thanks, bye.